One of the challenges that we have in the fitness industry is so many people have that passion for fitness, but they get involved just because they need a job. And so they find themselves calling and calling and calling, and that's not really what they want to do. So what we've found is that by having them AI for conversation starters that you can be able to intercept has just been a tremendous thing.
My name's Sabrina Romanov, and super excited today to be speaking with Clint Aragona. He's the CEO of Max Members in AI, and he's going to talk today about AI in the fitness industry, which is an amazing topic that not many people have talked about. So I'm curious about Clint's perspective. Clint, let the audience know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I've been in the fitness industry for nearly 30 years. So when I was young, I was started off in martial arts, and one led to me getting into lifting weights, and my body responded to it. And I thought, I want to be a part of this. So next thing you know, I'm a personal trainer that had a dream to own a gym. And I started off opening the gym like in the middle of the night, that first shift, and then worked through all these different positions. So then by 25, I'd owned a gym. And along the way, I've done a lot of entrepreneurial things too. So I've owned a lot of coffee shops, and we ended up with a software company about 12 years ago, which all those things kind of got to this point to where we ended up developing Max Members so that we can do some more cool stuff.
That's awesome. So you've been building businesses your entire life. And how did you get started in AI? What was your first exposure to that?
Around 2012, that's when I had an idea for a fitness center referral marketing systems. And I called it at the time, My Friends Go Free. And I tried to launch it in a way to the fitness industry. So that way there would be viral referral marketing systems. And at the time, we were really excited about bringing this to the fitness industry. But, it was a struggle trying to get it going. What we ended up doing is we made a shift, a pivot, and just decided to put marketing tool suites together for people to be able to just sell to businesses rather than me selling directly to the fitness industry. Now, that went extremely well. That was a big boom. And that I think just because we were involved in software and we were always doing marketing, it was just a natural thing to say, okay, AI is here. How do we use it to help with the fitness industry?
Awesome. And can you talk a little bit more about that? Again, I've never heard anyone talk about AI being applied in the fitness industry. So I'm curious where you're starting. Is it primarily marketing where you're applying AI initially, or other aspects as well?
Anytime you have a membership-based thing, you could almost break it into offense and defense. So the offense is the marketing and the sales, and the defense is the retention. So when you think, okay, how can you use AI offensively? There's a thing, of course, in sales, it's speed to lead. How quickly can you get to a lead after they have filled out a form? And so AI has made it so that you can just do it almost freakish instantly, right? That can create those conversations. And so one of the challenges that we have in the fitness industry is so many people in this industry have that passion for fitness and helping people, but then they get involved just because they need a job, and they end up doing sales. And so they find themselves calling and calling and calling, and that's not really what they want to do, right? So what we've found is that by having them AI for conversation starters that you can be able to intercept has just been a tremendous thing. In fact, for our club, when we first kicked off, we signed up about 600 members in 90 days by using that assistance.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I've read industry studies where you can increase your conversion rate by 400% just by getting back to an interested customer within minutes. And it's pretty incredible in 2024. I'll reach out to local businesses all the time for different types of work, and it still usually takes hours to hear back, even in 2024. And I'm excited for AI to make that experience better, both as kind of a customer, but also for small business owners, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it also has been really successful on the inbound side by utilizing the AI voice inbound. A lot of people, they'll call the club just to book a tanning appointment or book this or book that. So any of those type of booking type of calls, it helps with. You have to keep in mind that many fitness centers, they get tied up at the front desk. So you never have to miss a phone call again. And that's huge. Little things too on the sales side. Back in the day, we used to get phone inquiries, and we had a little notepad, a little post-it where you would write, okay, this is a phone inquiry, and you put one, and then two, and then you'd make your little check mark boxes at the end of the day. And then when you get into management, you realize your staff isn't doing this. They're making up numbers and all those type of things. So it's nice to actually have real data that's accurate.
Can you talk more about Max Members AI? So specifically, what is it that you're teaching other gym owners to be able to do? And I'm also curious, just the overall reaction to AI. Do you find folks are embracing it, adopting it, seeing what the value add will be, or is there a lot of resistance, like, I don't need this thing?
A little of both. So I travel around the country talking to gym owners. I'll see them look to other gym owners to try it first. So we're still in that phase where it's a little scary, it's a little new, but every single one of them know that they're going to have to enter this space. They just don't know exactly how or when is the best time to do it. But as we see people do it, we're seeing that it assists them in big ways. We have a club that has 4 locations, and they were just struggling big time with staff. 24% of their calls weren't being answered. And so right out of the gate, he knew that it would be helpful. And it's cool too, because, you get these little AI summary texts. So those summaries that you get, it lets you know if you need to actually get involved. Like if this was a highly sensitive situation, it seems like you can be able to jump on these things faster than ever. So it's helped everybody that's implemented it, made their life a lot easier. This is mostly on the offense side. In terms of service, one of the cool things that we created was an AI trainer. Now I want to build this out, of course. And really all doing is going to ChatGPT and giving them what they could go to ChatGPT for. But the difference is that we are asking them the questions that they need to put into the prompts, because oftentimes the regular person that so many people have not even heard of ChatGPT, it just asks them questions, what's your age, what's your goal, these types, and then it can just backfeed and give them the workout. But we also made it so that it can help book a personal training appointment.
So how is it delivered? Is it a custom GPT, or did you build it out with a different platform?
We built it out on BotPress. So it's just basically BotPress going to the knowledge base, pulling exercises and backfeeding through chat. So that's one of the things that we're doing to help with the service side. But I know that there is going to be so much more that can be done. For example, one of the things we're working on is persona-based responses, so that way you can the follow-ups to people can be done with their interest in mind. And that's one of the challenges in the past, was when you follow up with people to remind them about their exercise stuff, you have to almost do it as a broadcast catch-all type of scenario, or you have a whole team of people that are constantly calling everybody. And that was very ineffective too. So now I believe that we'll be able to increase retention by speaking their language on the services that they want, those type of things that people are mostly interested in, that it can just automatically update them.
I love that. So being able to do personalized outreach and communicate with each one, like, hey, maybe you have a deal going on for Pilates classes this week, and that's the best time to reach out to members who have expressed interest in that in the past. Also, when you said persona, I started thinking about an AI trainer with a persona. I think because some people, kind of like a encouragement-based trainer.
Absolutely. I definitely think between being able to have wearables and being able to even doing things like taking pictures of your food is a huge advance.
There are apps where you get to take a picture of your food and it tries to break it down. I love the concept of it, but the challenge is, how do you know what ingredients went into the food? So I'm curious, have you seen approaches to tackle that problem?
Not yet. Actually, we're just now getting involved in that side of things. Just because I've dealt with trainers around the country, they were already having people take pictures just because of non-compliance, just in general. Be like, count your macros. I mean, that's just enough for people to go crazy, right? So they're like, well, just take a picture and keep a little diary, and then I'll look at your food. So that kind of was already done by some trainers already, but now this just makes it a little easier for them, I believe, to kind of know like where you're messing up, or a person may think that this at 10 many calories, this is very healthy, right? But
yeah, and a lot of people who are new to working out don't necessarily recognize the importance of diet.
Yep, that's true. When it comes to accountability, you can just see how accountability is going to be so much easier in this industry. Just having people do the proper things. Sometimes reminding people why they got started in the first place and having those things timed properly makes a big difference.
Got it. Yeah. And so we talked about AI for sales and marketing, and we also talked about it for retention, but you also mentioned wearables, which got me thinking of different AI gym devices that I have seen ads for. Curious your thoughts on all those.
At our club, we just got a device that uses LiDAR to look at your technique. So that's one of the cool things. And I believe that once you get that data, it's also going to be able to create workouts and develop like the corrective exercises and these sort of things. But I'm not really that familiar with what's going on with equipment outside of that space. Not really.
I love that use case though for corrective posture and stuff. So is it a full body scan or is it a mirror that's looking at you?
It's a camera. I actually don't know how it works, but I know it's LiDAR. It's a camera, and you perform these basic exercises, just that would be more diagnostic exercises. And then it's really cool with the output that you get. Yeah, that's, I'll have to share some more information that in case you have any listeners that want to learn more about that. But it's some cool stuff that's just coming down the pike on that.
That's awesome. Yeah. So Max Members AI, you founded it in 2020. So how many fitness clubs have you worked with to date?
What we did, we started in 2020 because we got shut down with the pandemic. When we were shut down, it really forced me to try to look at this like what we do a little differently. So when you're shut down, it made me think one of the very first ideas that I had was, why don't we have more of a freemium model in the fitness industry? So freemium models are so successful, and you think about why would a person spend or a business spend so much money to get you to engage with their brand and then to tell them to go away. We all do like a little trial membership or say, hey, come in for a week. Then after that week, go away. And there's really no point in that. So with today's technology, I came up with this idea. Why not create something that is more of a long-term trial membership, create it into a free community membership? Then that way they would have casual access. And as long as you live within the zip code, then you download the app and you become a member of the gym. So that's really where it all started, was the idea of download the app, you become a member of the gym, and then the app itself could be able to referee, your access, giving you like a 1-day pass or multiple day passes per month that you can just come in for free and use the club. I mean, it really brought in a ton of leads. It got the community going, it got everything going. But how do you follow up with those people? How do you put together automations? And that's why we ended up with the AI automations, so that way we can get automated signups. We had more automated signups after that. We developed it and worked on it for a couple years. So we just launched it a few months ago, and now we're working in a couple dozen gyms and helping them out. And it's been, so far, it's been great. It's been really exciting.
Yeah, that's an entirely new business model. And it's really interesting because you can segment people based on their activity, because now you actually have some data on each person, maybe what classes they go to, how often they actually frequent the gym every month. If they're maxing out their casual membership every month, that's a prime person to send this sequence of automated messages with AI.
Yeah, and one of the challenges that we've always had is when you are trying to find out about a member, you use surveys. The problem with surveys, everyone knows what the problems with surveys are, that people don't do them, And if they do them, it's already a certain segment of people that would do it. So you never really get the true data. But what we have found is, because we have them download the app, they basically click on things they're interested in. And it kind of creates a profile, in the background. So that way we can better serve them.
That's awesome. Wow. And so do you also have automated AI workflows to provide coaching to those casual members? Like you were talking about the chatbot earlier on, to provide like a personalized fitness plan, or is that only for members of the club?
That's part of what we're working on for 2025, is what are the things that we could help with retention? How to make sure that people are fully aware that it's time for them to get an update on their workout, or they need to come in and do a progress check. So we're going to make sure that all those things are automated very soon, so that when people enroll, that we keep them moving forward.
And I also like how you mentioned that you use it as a funnel for booking your own personal trainer. Because a lot of people ask me, should I build a chatbot, but then how do I monetize it? But another way to think about it is at top of funnel lead generation, nurturing those folks, and then being able to identify who is a good fit, ready to go to the next level, being a personal trainer. I really like that model.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting times. And I think there's no shortage of ideas. Doesn't it seem like this is like the first time in my entrepreneurial career that the list is just way longer than what you can do with the bandwidth.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because a lot of people ask me, how do I build stuff? How do I get started building stuff? Or how do I hire someone to help? What's your advice there now that you've built out like many of these AI systems? What's your advice to other business owners in terms of attracting or hiring the right talent to build out these systems?
That's a good question. And I don't know if I could give good advice. My situation is that I've partnered with a good technical person right out of the gate. He's been with me for over 10 years and he handles those sorts of things. So maybe it's find somebody that is a managerial and technical person that you could be able to say, this is what I want my outcome to be. And then they can be able to identify what are the technical steps that need to happen in there. So one thought would be contact a consultant that could be able to just simply say, go do this, 1, 2, 3. And oftentimes it's much easier than people think. And it's just as simple as writing out what you want it to say in natural language, right? So it's really an aha moment, I think, for people to realize that some stuff is just way user friendly, way more than they think.
The question I get often, like, is it worth it hiring someone else? Because it often costs budget. So what would be your advice there for business owners?
Well, I suppose it depends on if you have more money or more time. If you have the money and not the time, then yeah, it's worth it. But if you have all the time in the world, then just learn.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time as well, right? That you can learn a lot of this stuff. I have tutorials for building chatbots from scratch. I've had people email me, zero tech background, really non-technical at all. They built their first chatbot in an hour. It's mind-blowing what you can do.
Well, I mean, I've often referred to you as a cheat code. I was like, you share such valuable information for people to not recognize what a great value you are.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, my goal is just to educate and empower more people to embrace this stuff and not be afraid of it. A lot of people are like, I'm X age or I'm X career and I feel very overwhelmed or intimidated and I don't know where to start with AI. And I'm wondering if I should pay for like this $5,000 course. You'd be surprised how many people I meet who are kind of currently in that situation. And I just want to be able to provide value just for free and help educate people. And like you said, there is a light bulb moment when you realize you can just type whatever and stuff comes back at you. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. And what you built with Lotato, we were checking it out and you've made it to where it's super easy for people to be able to do some stuff. It's really cool. It's really great.
Yeah, that's my goal. I just like, I have users now who are publishing like 50 posts a week, which is exactly where I wanted to get people to, because there's 8 to 10 major social platforms now. And there's absolutely no reason for you to make one piece of content and not post it on 5 other platforms.
Of the gym owners that I speak with, that's another thing that they have to think about, is social media. That's one of the things too that we're going to share with them so that way they can see that it can be done in an easier way. Oftentimes people think, well, you know how much people are paying for people to do that for them. Yeah, it's pretty significant.
Yeah, and I meet a lot of people who have hired either consultants, an agency, whatever, and have not had results. They can be paying anywhere from several hundred a month to thousands per month, and it's not getting you the results you want. And, when I tell people, like, even if you're a coach, just like film yourself talking about something and then post it on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, Facebook Reels, and see what happens.
It's the hardest part is getting past yourself. I think I struggle with it at least.
100%. It's a mindset issue. It's not a technology issue or a social platform issue. It's not an algorithm issue. Usually it's just people don't want to put themselves on camera.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, really quickly, wanted to talk about the coffee shops you opened. So you mentioned that in the beginning, you've spent your entire career basically building businesses. But what was the foray into coffee like? What kind of led you there, and what made you switch back to fitness?
One of the things, because I'm in West Virginia, there was a time when Starbucks was growing and growing and growing, but in West Virginia, there wasn't one Starbucks at all. So it was just more of a need thing. It was thinking about what are some of the things that I'd like and that I'm interested in. But more importantly, it was just, I saw an opportunity and I just took it. It was more like that. And just where you see that you go to a mall and you say, there's no coffee here, right? This is like,
that's crazy to me.
Right. And it's like, okay, well, we're going to have to put a coffee kiosk, here. And it's just, that's all I ever did really. Now, those were the business things. Of course, the fitness industry was more of the passion stuff where I really wanted to be. And like what we're doing with Max members is just because honestly, I felt like I couldn't find the system that I was looking for. So everything I do, I want to be systemic. There were a lot of things that we were doing that just really weren't, that didn't make much sense, that could be done easier.
One thing that stood out to me as you talked about starting businesses is that you just go for it. A lot of people I talk to have kind of a mental block or a lot of self-doubt and hesitation. Can you talk more about that mindset? How did you cultivate that?
Yeah, so I grew up in a house connected to a restaurant, so it was a pizza shop. I grew up with the model of my parents working for themselves, and I think that played a big role for me to be able to not be afraid to get into business because they would always try different things. Some things would work and some things wouldn't. So I've watched them do that, and not worry too much about it. So I guess I am a little bit of a risk taker, from a little skydiving, a little this. So I have a high risk threshold. So for me to look at a location and say, I think a gym would work here, it's easy to say, but it's hard to do. And I think really you just have to trust yourself, and more importantly, trust that you can be able to make the appropriate adjustments as you approach them. Because if something's not working, then you have to be smart enough to change it. And if a person wants to stay rigid and not change, then I would imagine that that would be where failure would. That's the scariest part to me, is not willing to change. I'm always looking for how to navigate into the change rather than to avoid it.
It's interesting you say that. It reminds me of something one of my past trainers used to say, which is that change happens all the time. Everything in the world, plus you yourself, are changing from day to day. It's tough because I do meet a lot of people who seem very passionate that they want to pursue ideas, but they just don't go for it. It's very much around mindsets. Many people I personally know, like I grew up in a suburb, you're kind of conditioned to fear failure. And especially in school, it kind of teaches you get good grades, don't fail, don't fail. Like failure is bad and to be avoided. And so the thought that you might fail is so paralyzing to people.
The thing I would say, I try to think of things in reverse. What would the 80-year-old self say to me about this situation? And if I think that my 80-year-old self just have huge regrets for not trying it, if it would feel like it would be a huge, huge problem for me to think that I didn't try it, then I would imagine that would be the motivation to do it. So it's important, I think, for people to recognize if you have a passion and you have a thing that you want to do, that you either have two choices: do it or regret it for the rest of your life.
You gave me an idea to build a custom GPT where it's like, you are where I want to be at 80 years old, whatever that is, like successful, you have a family, you're retired, whatever that looks like. I tell it GPT, and then you can just talk to it like, you are my 80-year-old self.
Yeah.
Here's my situation. What would you advise for me?
That actually is a good way to look at a lot of things, because our life goes by so quick that we don't really have a way to reflect on it. And that would be interesting. You should do it.
Yeah. So one of the use cases I'm playing around with lately is just AI for personal development, helping you paint your dream life, helping you come up with actionable steps. If you follow a certain leader, whether it's Hormozy or Grant Cardone or whoever it is, what would their advice be based on their framework and their teachings?
Yeah. And in fact, the ideas just bolt onto each other. That's what I've always found, is that once you get in motion, something bolts onto it. I mean, there is something to be said about trusting yourself and walking into the fog, knowing that as you walk into the fog, things start to become clear. And I don't think that I would have had success in some ways if I would have known all of the things that I would come across. Like I've told people in my life, it's like, hey, we have this business, it's going really well, but I'll tell you, I had no idea it would have as much expense to it as it has. I didn't recognize that completely. Maybe if I knew all of that, maybe I wouldn't have done it. But instead, it was more like, I know I can move forward to the next step. And every time I go to the next step, I can see the next step. And I just trust that mostly.
I love that you said that. The NVIDIA CEO says the same thing. If I knew how hard NVIDIA would have been, I wouldn't have started it.
No, it's better to not know some things, I think.
Yeah, especially now, I do think entrepreneurship is still very glamorized. It's very hard. It's very taxing. Like for me, I spent 7 years building a startup and was super burned out in like every aspect, mentally, physically, emotionally. And so I don't think people realize there can be that aspect of it as well.
What's it?
Like it was my first company, like didn't know what I was doing. I don't know if what I'm doing is the right thing. Now that I'm outside of Silicon Valley, I see all types of businesses that are incredibly successful, many of them without funding or going the traditional tech path. And so one thing I like to tell people as well is there are so many different paths you can take towards whatever dream it is that you want. And just because it doesn't follow the path you thought it would, doesn't mean it's a bad thing.
Right, right. That's well said.
From a lot of scars.
It's a bit like war. And so I grew up with that being part of how it worked. It was just what we did. Life and business was the same thing. So I got used to it very early on that, there's going to be struggles, there's problems, you have to fix things on the spot. It goes on. And even though the business is closed, it doesn't mean that you're not worried about and prepping for, thinking about and being worried about a competitor. So like all of those type of things that could happen that you maybe never really thought about before could creep up. But what's cool about it is there's always people that you can contact that have been either where you want to be or have been through what you're going through now. As long as you have people in your life that you can reach out to or find consultants that are available for hire all the time, then I would highly recommend doing that. That's the advice I would give people these days, is that pay for a consultant if you can, when you can, because 1 hour of a consultant may save you
6 months.
6 months and save you a ton of money. Depending upon if you're clear and you're serious about what you're doing, it's probably going to make sense.
I love that. Yeah. 'Cause people struggle to start, don't know where to start, pay for different courses and things. Not sure if they should pay for consultants, but it's like, do you value your time? If you're really serious about it, save 3 to 6 months of headache and get someone who knows what they're doing to just help you with the high level architecture and strategy. I view it similarly for coding. Like I have friends who are incredible architects and I'll get their feedback just to see if I'm missing anything, right? I'll also ask ChatGPT, I'll also ask Claude, like, what am I missing here? Is there a different way you'd organize this? But I'm also really fortunate to have folks in my network I can call upon to be like, it gives you so much peace of mind because the person that you're getting help from has years of experience and has seen so many more situations and is thinking through so many pros and cons and trade-offs.
Sure, yeah. And also you will probably build your network as a result of even contacting that consultant in the first place. One of my good friends was a consultant. He was a consultant for me over 10 years ago, and now I would call him a good friend. It's just things happen strange ways. So, but you have to try. I do think that the fitness industry is going to have some interesting things happen, with AI, and I think the member experience better. And I think for businesses, we've already see how it can help with business for sure.
So that does remind me of one question. Are you seeing any applications of AI for home-based coaching?
I've seen a couple, but I haven't really looked into it much. But I imagine that there's going to be flooded with them if they don't already exist.
Yeah, I think it exploded a bit during COVID, as you can imagine, with people not necessarily wanting to go outside. But yeah, I'm curious if that has kind of faded. People want that in-person interaction primarily.
I can comment on that of course, all our trainers and all the people I know during that time period, during the pandemic, they tried to do a little bit more of the online coaching. And some of it was successful, but most of the clients that were doing online coaching wanted to come back and do it physically. And I do see the advantages of it. There are a lot of things that's difficult to do through.
Yeah, it's like change your camera so I can see your proper form. And
like a little, so I can see the angle of this. It's that makes it a little tough.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Clint. How can the audience find out more about you and Max Members AI?
And they could just go to maxmembers.ai.
Yeah, perfect. Nice and simple. All right. Thanks so much for joining me.